I watched Midsummer probably like
Midsommar
three
is unlike
years
any
ago.
horror movie I've ever seen.
2-3 years ago, around there. It was banging. I don't remember it all the way
Where
because it's been a
almost
while, but I
every
remember it
horror
being
film
banging.
takes
I was like,
place
oh
at
shit.
night, most of Midsommar is set during the day.
It didn't really feel like a horror
In the
film though.
cozy environment
Like
of
it
a
felt tense
brightly
at
lit
moments, but it was
Swedish
just super
village.
weird. I loved this
9
shit.
p.m.
That can't be right. The sky's blue.
Instead of jump scares and uncomfortable close-ups, director Ari Aster films many of the scenes in wide shots, sometimes letting an entire scene play out in just 1 or 2 takes. It doesn't even feature that many deaths on screen, which is usually the meat and potatoes of most horror flicks. But as off-putting as I found
more
the
of the
original
premeditation,
version of Midsommar, there's another version of the movie that's even stranger.
Yo, I'm not gonna lie, I might have to watch this, dog.
What's
Is this
happening?
gonna spoil it for me?
No, wait, stop! Nay!
For one thing, this alternate version shows us more of the unusual rituals of the Horga, the Swedish community who reveal themselves to actually be a pagan cult preying on the visiting foreigners. But Midsommar is not so much about the cult as it is the relationship between Dani and her scumbag boyfriend Christian. And in this alternate version of the movie, we actually get to see
Yo, her
a
boyfriend was
whole other
actually a
side to their
fucking
relationship
dickhead, wasn't he?
that
I
wasn't
forgot
in the
about that
cut
shit,
made it
dog.
to theaters. And there's more. One character's death, left unexplained in the original version, actually gets more of an explanation in this new cut. And we also see more of the conflict between Christian and Josh competing to write a college thesis about the Horga. All of this new material and more can only be found in the Midsommar director's cut.
Dude,
But you
yeah,
might be
this shit. Oh man, I
what
remember this
exactly
fucking
does the
movie being
director's
so
cut add?
weird.
And
It was so
could
eerie,
it
man.
actually be better than the theatrical version? Let's break down both cuts and see for ourselves.
You know what I also never watched? Requiem for a Dream's director's cut. I watched the movie, but I didn't watch the director's cut. I should probably do that. I need to rewatch that movie too. Man, there's a lot of movies I need to rewatch, man. Okay. And I forget them too. Like one of my friends will mention,
The
I'll be like,
biggest
"Oh yeah, I
addition
seen
in
that,"
the
and I'll be like,
director's
"Oh
cut
yeah, I seen that."
is a pair of
I
scenes
forget how good it
that
was.
are interestingly both set at night, drawing a stark contrast to all the brightly lit sequences throughout the movie. The first new scene shows us another ritual of the Horga. Shortly after the Atestupa scene, Dani, Christian, and their friends are invited to witness another ritual of the Horga. In this case, a water ceremony. Here, the Horga carry a decorated tree into the water, and then seem to put on a short performance before a young boy, dressed just like the tree they tossed into the water, volunteers to be drowned in order to appease their goddess. As the Horga prepare to toss the child into the water, Dani speaks up to stop it. But just as she does, the rest of the Horga protest as well, and the child's death is seemingly averted.
No, wait, stop! Nej! Sluta! Låt honom vara! Han har visat sitt mod! Sluta!
First off, this scene answers what happened to the British girl Connie, whose death is only hinted at in the theatrical cut when we see her waterlogged corpse being taken into the house where Christian and the others are burned.
Oh my
The
god,
director's
they
cut
drowned
confirms
her.
that the Horga
What
did
the
indeed
fuck?
drown, just as they threatened to do with the child. That being said, it is a bit strange that she's there though, so soon after she was disgusted by the Atestupa ritual. I'm guessing this was to provide the viewer another visual clue to her death. But in terms of the water ritual we saw, there are a couple of ways this scene.
Man, I need to watch this
could be
direction. I don't
interpreted.
know. Hey,
What's
listen, man.
interesting is how it shows Dani being.
You can let
more
us spoil
proactive in
your
actually
movie,
speaking
or you
up
just watch
against
the movie.
cult, compared
You know
to
what it
earlier
is. You
during
just
the
experience it.
Atestupa.
Doesn't
And
matter.
we even get some early signs that Dani is starting to be assimilated into the cult. In this shot, she's already a part of their group, while Christian and the others stand outside the gathering. And the cult members immediately begin to mimic Dani after she calls to stop the drowning of the boy, just as they do later in the film.
Damn.
But is this a typical Horga ritual? Or did they put on the show in order to test Dani? the scene leaves it open-ended. But what's even more intriguing is how the movie builds on this scene to expand the central relationship between Danny and Christian, which is one of the big changes in the director's cut.
I'm not gonna lie, this has to be like one of the
You
worst
not see
relationships I've
what's
seen
going
in a
on
film.
here? This level of tradition? No one's seen this, no one's written anything on it, and they've invited us to be a part of it.
Like, I don't
Can
even
you see
remember
what
like that. I just
privilege
remember
that is?
hating this motherfucker, bro. Being like, yo, this guy's a fucking
Following the water ritual,
dickhead, bro.
Danny and Christian have a discussion about whether to leave the community. Christian reveals to Danny that he's doing his thesis on the Horga now and competing with Josh over it. But Danny says that they can't trust the Horga, since they clearly depend on no one knowing about the pagan rituals they're performing. Again, this shows Danny showing more common sense and independent thinking compared to the rest of her group. And later in the scene, she even stands up to Christian, asking him point blank if he loves her anymore. This upsets Christian, who chastises Danny for using her psychology degree to describe their relationship. But there's an even more revealing moment when he calls back to when Danny picked flowers
Using her
for him
psychology
earlier
degree.
in the movie.
When you casually gift me an impromptu bouquet of flowers, that just makes
What
me think,
flowers?
how and when am I supposed to pay that back? Everything you give me is a reminder that I'm not doing enough for you in this relationship.
What, at lunch? I picked those on a whim.
Oh, don't try to tell me that you had no ulterior motive.
Yeah, what
On your
motives do I
birthday,
have?
the day
Dog,
after I
what are
didn't
you
get you
talking
something.
about? Oh shit, yeah, that's
Are
fucked.
you being serious?
It's a really nice scene that gives us some more details about their relationship. It does raise the question of why Danny would eventually fall victim to the cult if she's the only one smart enough to question them now. But in my opinion, this makes it even more tragic that the cult is able to take advantage of her emotional instability and convince her to join them.
And I feel like their relationship has a whole other chapter to it that we had to remove to get the time down. Them arguing in the field, which was always sort of like a centerpiece for me, was always the marker of like, we're right in the middle now.
This
Why would
sequence
you get rid of
has
that, then?
more ripple effects throughout the rest
Because
of
he
the
can make it a
movie
director's
as
cut.
well.
Ah, shit, I'm
For
over here
one
talking
thing,
shit. I've never made a movie.
Danny's dream sequence, where she sees
Not
Christian
yet.
and the others leaving her behind in the village, has more of an impact, coming immediately after the new scene of her fight with Christian. This sequence is supposed to illustrate her fear of abandonment, which resonates even more strongly since we saw Christian do that in reality just moments before. Later on, we get a short scene where Danny and Christian make up with each other, albeit with Christian never really apologizing.
I don't want us to be fighting, Christian.
Well, me neither.
At first, it seems to be a rare moment where we see the couple act decently toward each other. But what's even more interesting is how this interaction adds new meaning to a scene we already saw in the theatrical cut. Here, Christian is talking to a Horga resident.
The
doing
buildings
research
here
for his
were
thesis,
fucking outstanding,
when Danny
too.
comes up to him
I watched the
and
movie
tells
before
him
I
that
was
Simon
ever, like,
strangely left Connie by
into the
herself.
frame and shit.
She's then
And like
taken
looking at the
aback
structure of
when
these
Christian
buildings is
barely
beautiful.
acknowledges the news and goes right back to his interview.
Like, I like building houses. It's calming.
No,
It's
she
nice.
just got.
Did she say why?
No.
Not when you're rushed, but when you aren't, it's like, you know, just working. Building something like this would be beautiful.
On the subject of couples, actually, is there ever an issue with incest?
The shot finishes with Danny catching a glimpse of Josh conducting his own research with the Horga. And suddenly, Christian's priorities are crystal clear. But when you take in this sequence after the makeup scene, Danny's revelation hits even harder, as she realizes how Christian was just pretending to be apologetic moments before, and both she and the viewer get a better sense of how manipulative he is. It also makes this line
I could see you possibly doing that.
from a later scene much more motivated. These are all examples of how Astor's director's cut doesn't just add new scenes, it also adds new context to the existing scenes in the theatrical cut. And if you think Christian is even more of a scumbag in the director's cut, well, it doesn't stop there. Another extended scene in the director's cut is the initial fight between Christian and Danny after she learns that he's going to Sweden. In the theatrical cut, It ends on this line.
It can be inspiring, right? Right?
But in the director's cut, the conversation continues, with Danny starting to panic and rapidly apologizing to Christian for confronting him about going to Sweden. And then Christian reveals that he actually planned on inviting Danny to Sweden anyway. Or at least, he claims as much.
What do you mean?
What I just said?
Just Sweden?
Mm-hmm.
Bro, that ain't convincing at all, bro.
You don't want me to go?
I just asked.
Yeah, after I broke down crying.
Well, you ruined the surprise. I wanted it to be romantic.
It really highlights how conniving Christian is, and it sets up his gaslighting of Danny much earlier in the movie. While the director's cut definitely fleshes out a lot of the central relationship between Danny and Christian, it also adds some finer touches to some of the subplots.
The thesis.
Most notably, the conflict between Josh and Christian.
Oh yeah, he
over
was
their
moving
thesis
crazy
gets some
during
more
that
airtime
scene.
in
I
the
remember being
director's
tense stuff watching that shit. Take a
For
snap,
example, in
take a
car
picture of the
ride
book,
on the
bro.
way to the Horga village,
Jeez.
Josh explains what his thesis is about, and Danny awkwardly gets Christian to admit he doesn't know what his paper is actually about yet.
What are you doing your thesis on again?
Well, my focus is actually on European Midsommar traditions, which is basically the impetus for this whole trip.
Impetus.
Hey, that sounds similar to what you think you're doing, right? For your thesis.
Well, I don't know exactly what I'm doing it on yet, as you know, but I'm thinking of rooting it in something Scandinavian, yeah.
But the theatrical cut removes that interaction and tosses in a random line from Mark mentioning Christian's thesis, which was clearly added in
Yo, I feel like if I'm
post-production
in
to
college
make up
with
for
my
cutting
friend,
the
I'd
longer
never be
scene.
competing about the
If I can
thesis.
grabbed all the best babes from other countries and dragged them over.
Christian, you can do your thesis on that.
And later, the confrontation
Wow.
between Josh and Christian gets a bit longer of an outburst
I'd never
from
compete because
Josh,
it's two. You can do
who
two
calls
different
out
theses. It's
Christian
not gonna be the
for
same.
not
It'll be on
approaching
the
his
same
studies
subject.
the
It's not gonna be
same
the
way as
exact
Josh
same.
does.
In case you hadn't noticed, Your Highness, we're doing the exact same degree.
No, but not in the same way, Christian. Okay? I have to hold your little hand through everything. You didn't even know how to use JSTOR until I taught you, and you are a grad student. Why are you even in academia? You don't care.
These moments are nothing earth-shattering, but they do help to beef up the subplot and lead to some more moments of humor.
I never
Like the scene
understood
where
fighting with your
Christian
friends
tries
like
to do
that,
some
bro.
research, but
If you
forgot
get,
to
you
actually
know,
bring
if some
paper
shit
to
goes
write.
down, it gets heated. I understood that.
Oh,
I
by
understood.
the
Like
way,
sometimes
this
friends
scene
fight,
is new too,
you know, like,
and
but
it
you
also
get it
helps
over
to
with. It
beef up
is
another
life, but
storyline.
sitting there and like making
Maya's
it
seduction
all
of
dramatic.
Christian.
It's a fucking movie. I don't know what I'm talking
Maya
about. Sitting there and making
is
something
never actually
super dramatic for no
introduced to
reason. It's like
Christian in
whatever.
the
Like
theatrical
I've gotten
film.
angry at friends
So, while
before
not
and been like,
totally necessary,
but then it's like
this scene
right
does
back to what we're doing. Like,
establish
let's
that they
move
have
on. Let's
officially
not
met.
keep talking about
And
like
it
whatever,
pays off
bro.
later,
You
when
know?
the elder Horga leader
gotta
brings
build up all
Maya
that
to
tension for
Christian,
what, dog?
who now has a reason to know who Maya is. Speaking of this scene, the director's cut makes some interesting changes here too. The elder reveals that Pele gave Maya a photo of Christian before he arrived, setting up her infatuation. And although Christian seems
Kicked him
more
in the butt, I
hesitant
remember that.
when she asks him if he wants to mate with Maya, she tempts him by saying it would be a unique academic opportunity.
From an academic perspective, it would also provide a unique glimpse into our sexual
Dude, the
rights.
fucking architecture.
This conversation
is
also
so
gives us
good,
some more
bro.
insight on
I might
how
have to
much
go
the
to
cult
Sweden.
has been scheming against the foreigners
on,
since
get
before they
kidnapped
even
out there, bro.
arrived. But I also think it ends on a much stronger note.
They throw
in
me
the
in a hut.
theatrical cut, Christian and the elders' conversation
That's a joke, by the way.
does feel cut short,
Shout out to
and
Swedish.
it ends on what's supposed to be a joke, with a close-up of Christian and a line delivered off-screen from the elder.
I think I ate one of her pubic hairs.
Sounds probably right.
But the director's cut not only has a new punchline that's funnier, it holds the wide shot for longer. So when it cuts to a close-up of Christian, it's more jarring, which makes the impact of the new punchline to the scene even stronger.
From an academic perspective, it would also provide a unique glimpse into our sexual rights.
Can I not have a unique glimpse without participating?
And this is another of the main areas where a longer cut makes sense for Midsommar, in the very deliberate way Aster and his crew shot the movie.
Now they shot the fucking movie beautifully though.
Like I said at the beginning of this video, Midsommar isn't like typical horror flicks, which often employ shorter, more breakneck pacing accompanied by quick editing. Many of Midsommar's scenes play out in long
Yeah, I don't know if I'd
sequences,
consider
with both the
Midsommar a horror
background
movie. I think
and
it's more of a
foreground
psychological.
heavily choreographed.
Like
It
it's a
not only
mind
gives
fuck
a
movie.
sense
Like
of
fuck,
life
bro.
to each scene.
You know what I
It
mean?
makes the whole community
That's
of
what it
the
really
Horga
is.
feel
With a
more
little
lived
bit of
in,
oh shit
more real.
at the end, but
The director's cut only builds on this, especially through Aster's use of the background. When Christian first speaks to Maya, we see them decorating the tree that's later used in the water ritual.
oh
In
shit.
another scene, we even see the maypole being set up. Here, in the theatrical cut, we see Horga villagers collecting the ashes of the elders who committed suicide. But in the director's cut, this fire that the Horga used to burn their bodies is introduced much earlier and given some background, with Pele explaining that the cult keeps it constantly burning 24/7. None of these elements really affects the story or our understanding of it, so you can see why they were the first scenes to be cut. But they serve to enrich the world of the Horga and give Aster more opportunity to play within the frame, so that there are almost two different movies playing out. One in the foreground and one in the background.
I feel closer to this version because it feels a little bit closer to what I originally intended, which was basically to make a film that you kind of have to give yourself to and just like lie in.
So the director's cut is definitely more Midsommar, but is it a better Midsommar? You can see why Aster prefers the longer cut. The central relationship between Christian and Danny gets more room to breathe, culminating in their argument in the field that gives us a glimpse at a dynamic we never really got to see.
How would
in
you
the theatrical
feel about
cut.
getting murdered
We
by
get a
your
more
tribe
detailed picture of the
in order
Horga,
to preserve
including more of their
food
rituals
for
and
the
more
young
hints
and,
at
you
how
know,
they've
just
been
the other
setting
people
up
in the
these
tribe if you're
travelers for their
old,
doom.
an elderly person.
Plus, some of the extended
like if you're
scenes
70,
simply feel
I don't know,
less
you can still be healthy.
abrupt
If you're like
compared to their
80
truncated
plus,
endings in the theatrical
and you're like
cut.
waiting to die,
But
like you're in a
it's
tribe
hard to
hundreds of
argue
years
that
ago. And
all
I'm
this
talking
extra
Oklahoma,
texture
basically.
to the movie was really necessary. Yes, we get more setup of Christian trying to steal Josh's thesis, and Connie's open-ended death makes more sense here. But that said, the general arc of the movie doesn't change that much, and all these plot lines are conveyed just fine in the theatrical cut.
Fire.
I personally already thought the original cut of Midsommar was a bit too long as is, and with the director's cut over 20 minutes longer, I don't think there's enough new detail here to justify the added length, save for perhaps the nighttime argument between Christian and Danny. The longer cut certainly satisfies some of my curiosity about the Horga and the world that Aster has created here, but I find myself preferring
Well,
the
there's a
more
lot of visual
streamlined
appeal. I mean, if the
theatrical cut
fucking movie was
when
an
all
hour
is
long,
said
I
and
feel like
done.
you'd be sitting there like, man, I wish I had more of these shots right here that were, you know, dope as fuck. You know,
That sums up the biggest changes to Midsommar in the director's cut,
slow pace.
but
it
it's
was
worth
great,
noting
man.
that there are even more edits that Aster made to the movie, which I may cover in a future video. If you're interested in investigating these more yourself, check out the video description, where I'll list the places you can find both versions of Midsommar. And be sure to check out my channel for my other videos on alternate versions of movies and how they measure up to their original cuts. Don't forget to let me know which version of Midsommar you prefer in the comments below, and I'll see you guys.
I watched the director's cut. How would you feel about being like an old elderly man or woman and being like, you know, the tribe comes up like, hey man, listen, you're waiting to die, you ain't putting in work. I think you should do a sacrifice, man. Show the love for the tribe, you know. You're wasting food out here. You know? I feel like if you're in that position, the only thing you could do is like, yeah, let's do it. Cause then at least you get a little bit like a ceremony, you get shit. Cause I feel like you definitely think they're gonna kill me either way. They're gonna kill me either way, cause they don't want me here. I'm wasting food, you know. They think I'm wasting food. You know what I mean? So I'm sure Well, I know it's not real. Midsommar ain't like. Well, I don't know. I don't know. I've never been to Sweden. I don't know if they out here they're killing people in tribes. But what I will say is, if it's true, hypothetically, you could assume the first, the start of that like ritual probably came from somebody being like, "Yo, these old motherfuckers, bro, like, kind of just wasting our shit." You know what I mean? And then like, that's it.